CTV News with Matt Gilmour.
Good evening and welcome to this half-hour newscast on CJ 8800 and CTV News Montreal.ca. There's a freezing rain warning in effect that will be followed by extremely cold overnight temperatures this week. With that, more Montrealers will be turning to homeless shelters and warming stations. But this year, with more space available, advocates say the situation has improved. Kelly Gregg reports.
Every single one of these 160 beds were full last night, with the Welcome Hall Mission St. Antoine Street dorms at capacity. But there is a difference this year compared to others.
The demand is up. It's very clear. We do have more spaces available to us this year.
An outreach worker.
Earlier this month, the city announced its goal of adding 500 more spots in warming shelters. Watt says it has eased the pressure, but it isn't the best solution.
Those spaces are often suboptimal. They're chairs in corners of rooms, they're cots in the basement of churches.
The Old Brewery Mission runs a shuttle service to find people places for the night. It agrees this winter is better than last.
It has been easier to place people this year than last year. We have a little bit of oxygen that we've not seen in the previous years, and that's very welcome.
And while the city has appealed to businesses and building owners to make spaces available, it's often a stopgap measure.
We would like more services to be 24/7. We're seeing a lot of the services in the evening and overnight only. We need to stretch that out so people have the capacity to get inside during the day.
But while there is more vacancies at shelters and warming centers, demand is up too.
Demand has not abated. Demand is continuous. It's intense.
There has already been one death this winter in Montreal after a man's tent caught on fire in Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Police believe he was trying to stay warm. While it's not a perfect solution, spaces like these are a way to survive.
It is a way to ensure that they stay alive.
And with overnight temperatures in the mid-minus teens this week, they say any measure is better than sleeping outside. Kelly Gregg, CTV News.
The body of a Quebec man was pulled from the water in Florida, northeast of Orlando. The local rescue service confirmed the 44-year-old man was found floating face down in the rip current Friday. Lifeguards brought the man to shore and performed CPR unsuccessfully. His identity has not yet been released. Well, a day after meeting with Prime Minister Mark Carney, Volodymyr Zelenskyy spent the day in high-stakes talks with the U.S. president today in Florida. The talks could potentially lead to the end of the Russian war in Ukraine. Selena Wang reports.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy meeting with President Trump at Mar-a-Lago in Florida today. The two leaders discussing a 20-point peace proposal to end the nearly 4-year-long war with Russia.
We're going to have a great meeting today. Our teams talked about strategy, how to make step by step and to bring peace.
Zelenskyy is looking for security guarantees for Ukraine.
There will be a security agreement. It'll be a strong agreement. And the European nations are very much involved in that. They'll be very much involved in protection.
Zelenskyy has proposed a demilitarized buffer zone in the Donbass region in the eastern part of Ukraine. But Russia has indicated that it wants Ukraine to cede all of that territory and even land that Russia doesn't currently control.
They're on the side of democracy, liberty, and Russia's on the side of authoritarianism and aggression.
The high-stakes meeting comes just one day after Russia launched one of the biggest attacks on Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, in months. Those strikes targeting power stations and residential buildings. On Saturday, both Zelenskyy and Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed doubts about the other's desire for peace.
This attack is, again, Russia's answer on our peace efforts, and it's really shows that Putin doesn't want peace, and we want peace.
Putin said that Russia could see Ukraine was in no hurry to end the conflict by peaceful means. But ahead of today's meeting, President Trump expressing optimism, saying he spoke to Putin on the phone, calling it a good and very productive call, and that he plans to speak to Putin again after his meeting with Zelenskyy. Selena Wang, ABC News, Palm Beach, Florida.
Iconic French actress Brigitte Bardot has died at the age of 91. The actress turned animal rights activist died today in her home in southern France. Bardot starred in nearly 50 films, including French hits like the 1956 film And God Created Women. Bardot announced she would be stepping away from the big screen in 1973 at just 39 years old. Here's film critic Richard Krause.
She was probably, along with Catherine Deneuve and Gerard Depardieu, probably, and Alain Delon, there were a number of them, but probably one of the most famous figures of the 50s and 60s to come out of the French film industry. And I've got a great quote here from Charles de Gaulle, who called her the French export as important as Renault cars. You would see her in movies like And God Created Woman.
Fans of Bardot laid flowers today under her statue in Saint-Tropez, France. The statue was inaugurated in 2017, marking her 83rd birthday. After giving up acting, she dedicated her life to animal welfare and her foundation, which works to protect wild and domestic animals. Well, that activism brought Bardot to Canada several times to denounce the annual seal harvest.
Full of esperance, hope.
She made her first stop in Newfoundland in 1976, followed by a second one to the Magdalen Islands in 1977. Both trips were to protest the hunt of baby seals. Her activism led to a worldwide boycott of pelts that led to white coat pelts, but led to backlash from remote communities whose livelihoods depend on the sale of pelts. She returned to Canada in 2006 and was denounced by Indigenous communities. More recently, Bardot supported activists who tried to stop the deer cull in a park in Longueuil 3 years ago. Bardot remains a controversial figure. Her outspoken far-right political views led to a string of convictions for inciting racial hatred. Bardot was fined by French courts 6 times between 1997 and 2008. A Pierrefonds Roxborough couple has spent years fighting for tougher laws around drinking and driving. Their daughter, Jessica, was killed by a drunk driver in 2017. At a recent police roadblock during the holidays, they were there alongside police to raise awareness. Angela Mackenzie has their story.
At this police roadblock, Antoine Bittard is speaking to drivers after officers ensure they're not impaired.
The fact that we can talk to the driver and thank them about driving sober, they understand the importance, and as a victim, we feel good because we try to put a face on a victim.
Bittard knows all too well the importance of campaigns like these. His daughter Jessica was killed by a drunk driver in 2017. His life and his family's were devastated in an instant.
A big chunk of your life disappeared, and a big chunk of your dream would disappear.
He and his wife Elizabeth Rivera will never forget that tragic night.
It was the wake up at 4:30 in the morning by the police coming to our house. To tell us that she passed away, that you don't know what to do, right? You're like, we were lost. We weren't even talking to each other. We're like, what's happening is not true. This is not happening.
Bittard and Rivera's bond over the years has only grown stronger as they fight to make sure Jessica's death was not in vain.
Jessica was a beautiful person. She was very kind, very compassionate, always putting people first.
They've channeled their grief and loss into advocacy, fighting for administrative sanctions such as fines and suspended licenses for drivers caught behind the wheel with a blood alcohol level of 0.05. Currently, the limit is 0.08.
First of all, it's going to save more than 50% of lives mortality on the road. More than 60% of the Quebecers agrees about that.
All Canadian provinces except Quebec impose penalties at 0.05. But so far, the CAQ has refused to budge on the issue.
We get mad about this situation. We're mad about the government who cannot take a responsible decision and have the courage to do it.
Bittard also speaks to people with impaired driving convictions.
Usually I tell them, what you will tell me if you were the person who killed my daughter? And you can see right away their eyes go down. And we're telling them, you have the second chance.
It's moments like these that give Bittard the push to keep fighting, and it's work that's appreciated by Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
He's a dedicated father and he wants to make sure that what happened to Jessica doesn't happen to anybody else.
By sharing Jessica's story, the couple hopes people will think twice before getting behind the wheel this holiday season.
A fatal collision, it takes 1 minute, and you change your life, you change the life of so many people around.
A loss they say no family should ever endure. Angela McKenzie, CTV News.
Well, holiday travel hasn't been easy across large swaths of the United States. Winter weather has interrupted flights, and there's more ice, snow, and heavy rain in the forecast. Johnny Fernandez reports.
After heavy snow blanketed the Northeast, a new storm system is moving across the country, bringing snow and rain. New York City continues to dig out after more than 4 inches fell, the most snow the city has seen since January of 2022.
The city's working pretty well to get the roads salted and everything, so it's all right.
I think it was absolutely beautiful. We're from North Carolina, so it was great to come up to New York and see the snow.
Parts of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan with significant icing over the past few days. Out west, an atmospheric river brought torrential rains to Southern California. Roads were washed away, drivers stranded. A confirmed EF0 tornado tore down signs, scattered debris, and broke windows in the Los Angeles neighborhood of Boyle Heights. Residents in the San Bernardino mountain community of Lytle Creek stranded after this bridge collapse in the raging floodwaters. The weather is complicating the return home from the holidays. Roads and airports are jammed with travelers. Thousands of flights canceled or delayed since Friday.
This is wild. This is no Christmas miracle.
Parts of the South and Midwest could see record-breaking temperatures before the weekend is over. Johnny Fernandez, ABC News, New York.
And all that weather is having an effect on flights coming in and out of Trudeau International Airport. In an email, the airport told CTV News the snowstorms in the U.S. are having some delays on arrivals and departures here in Montreal. The ADM recommends passengers contact their airline for up-to-date information. Taking a look at the weather forecast, another cold day today, currently -8 degrees in Montreal. Feeling like -14 with the wind chill. It's going to go up to 1 degree overnight with 6 to 12 millimeters of freezing rain expected. Tomorrow, a mild day with mixed precipitation, expecting some snow, perhaps some rain throughout the day. Then the temperature drops again. We'll spend most of the week at around -10, -11 with really cold nights throughout the week. 2 helicopters collided midair in New Jersey, killing 1 person and critically injuring another. Video shows 1 helicopter spinning in circles before slamming into the ground. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration says the collision happened near the Hamilton Municipal Airport. Only the pilots were aboard. The National Transportation Safety Board is investigating. Officials are warning of a confirmed case of avian flu in a town in south-central Ontario. The Canadian Wildlife Health Cooperative says the reported case comes from a dead Canadian goose found at a pond in the town of New Tecumseh, an hour north of Toronto. Residents in the area are being asked not to handle sick or dead wildlife and to not feed raw meat from game birds to pets. This year, we brought you a story of a former volunteer firefighter who needed eye surgery but was unable to get to his appointments after suffering a stroke. Now, with the help of strangers, he's finally had his surgery. Here's Sweeta Rassi with the update.
Okay. For years, Michael Levine lived with his sight slowly slipping away due to cataracts. Now he can finally see again after a difficult journey.
It was great.
He was supposed to have surgery in November 2022, but in July of that year, he had a stroke. The former firefighter became mostly paralyzed. While his brain functions perfectly, his speech is limited.
That's right.
CTV News first told Michael's story in June, when the stroke made getting to and from the hospital for appointments nearly impossible. After hearing Michael's story, a private transportation company in Ontario offered to help. His first ride was free, the others paid for by anonymous donors.
Okay, Mikey, do you believe it's happening now?
Yeah.
On December 15th, Michael made it to the hospital and had his long-awaited operation. Tammy Levine is Michael's sister. She left the U.S. and came back to Canada to take care of her brother full-time.
You can see. Hey.
Wow.
Now, she says, Michael no longer has to imagine what he's watching.
You can hear him go, wow, wow, and come in to see what he's like, not at all what he thought, because for years he's been, listening to his shows, his favorite shows.
For Tammy, the surgery was about more than just improving his vision.
For his quality of life.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. He's paralyzed, but then to not even have your sight.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
And Tammy adds the support has been overwhelming.
A huge thank you to your viewers, to the people that reached out and helped.
But Michael's journey is far from over. Before the stroke, he was in the process of getting his teeth fixed. His mother, Connie Auger, hopes the treatment can soon resume.
And there's a lot of foods that he just misses out on because there's no teeth to be able to chew.
For now, Michael is focusing on what he's gained, the simple joy of seeing the world once again. Sweeta Rassi, CTV News.
Foster families play a huge role at the SPCA. When animals need extra care, these families take them in. Christine Long met 2 foster families earlier this week. Here that story is again, in case you missed it.
You like those? Yeah.
They've been fostering SPCA cats for years. Recently, Bagel the black cat moved in with Gabrielle Plowens and Eric Byram.
We fostered a few times, which was great because it was relatively short term. It's not a 15-year commitment to an animal.
Bagel has already played the role of big brother to weeks-old kittens that came to stay for a while.
So we had to bottle feed them every 2 hours, and we woke up in the middle of the night and we tried to trade off, do one night each, but it got so difficult that we both had to get up every time.
Foster families are matched with a pet in need, mostly cats and bunnies.
Need to be in a foster care for a few months sometimes, so it depends really on what people are ready to welcome, and we can almost always find an animal for them.
Foster families are assigned a counselor for guidance, veterinarian access as needed, and a care kit with the food and items for the pet. Animals that need extra care or socializing do better in a home than at the shelter.
Do in between 80 to 120 animals that we place in foster care each month.
Claire Vessot has cared for a diabetic cat before and recently took in Capri, who is 15 years old and needs insulin injections twice a day to regulate his diabetes.
I have his syringes. Here is one of them. I have my glasses too because he only gets 1 unit, so I want to be sure.
This is her first foster, and it seems to be going well. Sounds like Capri will live out the rest of his 9 lives here.
Opened my heart and me up to having, him in my life, so I never would have gone out and adopted a cat. That's a perfect way for some people.
Yes, my love, hello.
Clarence Favreau says the commitment can be relatively short, yet meaningful.
Palliative care program, we sometimes have hamsters, rats, we even have bearded dragons, we have some snakes, lizards in fosters.
The SPCA is always looking for more families.
We fell in love with him early on because he's so friendly and curious and playful.
It may be a humble gesture for you, but it's the world for them.
You could really be making a big difference for an animal.
Christine Long, CTV News.
2025 has been an incredibly exciting year for women's sports in Montreal and across the country. The Montreal Victoire continued to grow in popularity, and the Roses FC had a successful first season playing in Laval. And of course, there was the incredible excitement around Victoria Mboko's Cinderella win at the Montreal Open. Here to talk about how to capitalize on that momentum is Alison Sandmeyer-Graves, CEO of Canadian Women and Sport. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So not only are we seeing great achievements in women's sports, but we're also starting to see a lot of enthusiasm and interest as well. How much has women's pro sports grown in the past year?
Well, we released a study this fall that looked at the commercial side of women's sports. So specifically looking at professional women's sport, and it found that the market had doubled in size in 2 short years and is on track to surpass $500 million by 2030. So women's professional sport is turning into a significant economic engine here in Canada, and in a hurry, because I think, as you spoke to, things seem to be coming on very quickly. Where there were no leagues or teams, now we have 2 and a third one coming with the Toronto Tempo in 2026.
What do you think's behind the growth?
Well, if we look globally, I think what we were saying was that Canada was a little bit behind. When we look at our counterparts in the US, in Europe, in Australia, women's professional sport has been growing and growing rapidly, with significant fans showing up, with significant sponsorships, media rights deals, and so on. So Canada had some catching up to do. What is great about this country, though, is we know that we have the world's best women athletes. We know that we have a ton of Canadian pride and a deep sporting culture. And so it was time to overcome the hurdles that have stopped us in the past, making sure that the investment is there, the media is there, and the fans are there, which we know they are. They're showing up in droves.
Yeah, well, just as an example, had a story in our newscast just this past week about a brand new bar that just opened up in Montreal that's showing exclusively women's sports. And if you want a seat out at that bar for at least the hockey games, you got to be there about an hour early. So as someone who's been working to try to get women's sports off the ground and really getting it going, when you hear those stories, how does that make you feel?
It's truly thrilling. You know, we really are living through a complete transformation of the sport landscape in Canada. You mentioned Victoria Mboko's win earlier. You know, tennis has had this incredible, deep roster of talent. And we've got one tournament here in Canada where they get to show their stuff. Similarly on the golf side with Brooke Henderson and her peers. Now we have teams and leagues playing consistently in market from coast to coast. You can turn on your TV, you know, several nights a week and see something on the TV to watch of women's sport. That is an absolute game changer. What we are really keen to see now is how does that impact girls in our communities now that they have access to these role models, a culture that is more encouraging, more supportive, more respectful of women's sport. How do we translate that into girls playing and staying as long as possible?
The last thing I want to ask you is how to keep that momentum going. There have been women's leagues in the past that have had a bit of success and then folded. So how do we keep the momentum going?
It's early days, and the goal is sustainable teams and leagues that are thriving commercially and that are driving this broad social change that I spoke about. And so there's so many things to do. You know, show up, buy the ticket, tune in when it's on TV, watch it on streaming, buy the jerseys. If you own a business, big or small, put some sponsorship dollars behind it. Just show up however you can. Whether you're a women's sport fan or a sport fan, there's something here for you.
Alison Sandmeyer-Graves, CEO of Canadian Women in Sport. Thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate this.
My pleasure.
The Montreal Canadiens are playing the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight. They're doing so without forward Jake Evans. The team announced Evans will miss 4 to 6 weeks with a lower body injury after a knee-on-knee collision on December 20th. Well, Canada was looking to make it 2 wins in a row to start the World Junior Hockey Championships Saturday, taking on Latvia in Minnesota, and they needed overtime to do it.
Hage, trying to slap pass it back to Myers. McKenna looks back across, they score!
Habs prospect Michael Hage pocketed the winner in a power play less than a minute into extra time, avoiding a massive upset, beating Latvia 2-1. With the win, Canada avenged their shootout loss to Latvia in last year's tournament. The team now gets a day off before taking on Denmark Monday. And that's it for us. Thanks for watching and listening. Have a good evening.